major pollutant. But if you extract the sulfur, then you increase the cost, and so that is a problem. But you will notice that we are very environment conscious. When we started building up Singapore in the 1950s, the first thing that struck my colleagues and me was that if we soil any part of the island, then we have soiled the whole of the island. You cannot say that's a derelict area and we will live in this part and all the dirty and heavy and the degraded items will be in that corner. And so we've got the Singapore that you see. I mean, there are no slums, there are no ghettos, and we are extremely exercised over rising sea levels, which will threaten our very existence. So if you can feed us with how the maritime industry can improve itself without becoming too uncompetitive and cut in the pollution, we will push it. We have big problems. I'm not optimistic about the will of governments to attack this problem. I've just been reading a report of preliminary discussions of a conference which will be held later this year in Bali to follow up on the UN efforts, which is ongoing. And they're talking about preserving forests and as carbon storage. So in other words, if I don't cut the forest, you have to compensate me for absorbing this carbon dioxide you're releasing into the atmosphere. It's a logical argument, I suppose. I don't think that's going to solve it. The Australians have put in $200,000. The Australian Prime Minister, in his run-up to his elections, as a drought hit Australia, made climate change an issue high on his agenda. He has put into the kitty $200,000 to reforest Borneo, Kalimantan. It's a move in the right direction, but I think the world needs something much more basic than growing a few saplings in Kalimantan at the rate we are going. When the polar bears disappear from the Arctic, I'll be sad because, you know, you might see them in the zoos, but I'll be sadder when the Antarctic ice cap melts, because the Arctic is ice, so the water levels won't rise so much. The Antarctic is land on and ice on the land, so when that melts, the water level will rise significantly. So when I sit back and think about all these things, I get rather pensive. But at the same time, one mustn't give up hope. You either say that the human being has got enough wit and intelligence to save himself as a species, or that he is not smart enough to destroy himself as a result of conquering nature to a point where he has destroyed his own habitat. That is the problem we face. If you talk about climate change, you are immediately into a conflict situation. The new polluters, China, India, just But you polluted the world. It's now my turn. You can't tell me I can't industrialize. So where do we go from there? I think the answer is to get the climatologists to project fast forward 20, 30 years and get Chinese, Indian, and other climatologists up to speed and say, if this glacier in the Himalayas and in the Tibetan plateau melts away, and the speed is going and with increasing acceleration, your rivers will first be in flood, and after that, apart from the rainy season, there'll be no water in the rivers. And hundreds of millions of people living along these rivers will have to find another way of life. So if you can fast forward that 20, 30 years and say, now you are here, never mind who did what in the past, we are now at this junction. If you continue like this and I continue like this, we are both dead. I think that's, as I told you, I went to Oslo by air in the 1970s, and I thought to myself, what a wonderful place. I flew over Bergen and I said, oh God, this is paradise. Of course, it was summer. But can you remain as paradise? That's another big problem. So, technology has given mankind the capability to destroy his own habitat at the attraction of a higher standard of living immediately. How do we balance that equation? I don't know. But I do not see any leader in any country saying, let's eat less, eat more vegetables, eat less meat, and we don't have corn turn into biofuels because the price of corn goes up and wheat goes up and pasta goes up. And we are into an inflationary situation. Why not just say, change your mode of transport? It's an unpleasant prospect, but can we go on at this rate? I mean, if the Chinese reach the level of half the car population per thousand of population of America, the world will be done in. Can you imagine what the position will be? And I think they're fast forward towards that unthinkable prospect. But that's the way it's going. And you've got the Olympics coming in 2008, and they're going to have odd number cars and even number cars every other day. But they'll manage that just for the 3 weeks of the Olympics. Because I was there in Beijing in 1909 on the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Republic, People's Republic, and I saw blue skies. So I asked our mission officers, I said, how is it? So he whispered to me, he says, all factories have stopped working for 2 weeks. So I do not see them stopping factories for 2 years. What will happen to the economy? So we all face a problem. I think it is a doleful subject, so let's change it.
Okay, there's a question at the back there, and then there's one in front here. Please come to the mic and identify yourself.
My name is Svein Moxnes Harfield. I'm the Chief Executive of BW Offshore. Minister Mentor, Singapore has clearly delivered on your vision in creating a world-class maritime hub. The offshore industry, with its support vessels, drilling rigs, production platforms, is closely related to the maritime industry. Do you see Singapore playing an important role in the future development of this industry? And in case yes, how?
Well, I'm not in the rig building business myself, but we have people in it. And let me say that when I was in my 40s and 50s and the British were withdrawing in 1968, 69 from this part of the world, we were then talking about ship breaking to cut down our unemployment. Then because they were leaving, we took over the naval base in Sembawang and we converted it into a commercial ship repair center. And that was a success. Then the Americans came with the oil drilling boom in the 1970s. After the embargo, following the Yom Kippur War, and that brought about the oil rigging business. We learned hard, and we learned quickly, and we're now building rigs for Kazakhstan and in the Caspian Sea and many other places. And I think we will develop as the industry offers more and more possibilities. How do we cope with the manpower? I think it means through mergers and acquisition or direct recruitment, we will increase our human capabilities, tapping Chinese, Indians, the region's people, experts from America, elsewhere, Norwegians, whoever knows more than we do, and we learn. And we intend to stay in the business. As I said, these are basic industries. They may not be glamorous, but they provide secure employment, and they will go on till the end of time.
Question over here.
Good evening, sir. My name is Yuri Katau. I'm the Managing Director of Varun Shipping as well as the President of the Indian National Shipowners Association. We in India have a very strong relationship with Singapore, of course, both on the shipping side as well as on the business side. This is more of an observation rather than a question. We have an unusual situation on the taxation with the DTA between India and Singapore, where Singapore has an excellent financing scheme in the form of MFI. But if you actually owned a ship in Singapore and chartered it on a bareboat basis to India, we would end up paying a lot of tax as a tax deduction at source from India. I would really appreciate, sir, if there was something that could be done from the Singapore side. We've tried very hard from the Indian side. I think I have more faith on the Singapore side at this stage, sir. So if we can do that, that would be excellent.
But
Thank
the
you.
Singapore side alone cannot deliver this. I'm not sure how it will work in detail, but if it means a loss of revenue on the Indian side, you will not find them very enthusiastic. Surely you can find a good lawyer who will know how to third party the charter so that it does not remain an Indian charter but some other third country that does this trade for you. Then you are out of their jurisdiction.
Is that legal?
Yeah. No, I'm quite sure there will be lawyers who can advise you on this.
A quick response, if very good.
Just a quick response. Well, you know, other countries have it. There's a very favorable treaty between Cyprus and India. It's just because the ship is considered as equipment. It's a technical problem. If the government of Singapore can help us with that, that would be wonderful, and I'm sure it would build better relationships between the two countries.
No. Well, you tell the Singapore negotiators what is it that Cyprus has got that got them entitled to this, and we'll try and make ourselves qualified.
I think I thought I saw a hand at the back there. Yes, please come up and. Yeah.
My name is Khalid Hashim. I'm the Managing Director of Precious Shipping.
Of what shipping?
Precious Shipping.
Where's that based?
Based in Bangkok, but we also have a large, we have a presence even in Singapore. My question for you, Minister Mentor, is you touched very briefly upon India and China's growing presence in the container business. You did not touch upon their appetite for bulk cargoes. And what sort of challenges would that throw upon the maritime world if these two countries really start to get their infrastructure building, which they're trying to do, in order?
Well, you know that today the three largest shipbuilders are Japan, Korea, and China. And if I have read the Chinese leaders right in their ambitions, I think they intend to be the biggest of the three in the next 10, 20 years. I mean, they are 10 times the population of Japan. They're 22 times the population of South Korea. They do not lack the capabilities of their manpower is equal to that of the manpower of the Japanese or the Koreans. And it's a question of how fast can they learn. And I think we would assume that they will, over the next 20, 30 years, easily become the largest shipbuilders, ship owners, and ship operators. I mean, any other assumption I will find as not realistic. We have done business with them for many decades. We understand their innate capabilities, and we know that there is nothing which they do not desire. And this is what they can do, and they're going to do it. And I think the Indians are going to do it also, because India will become another manufacturing base once they get the infrastructure right, as they will. So if you ask me to project, it's like the aircraft industry. I mean, yes, Boeing and Airbus heading for China and later on India and Asia because of the sheer numbers and from what they have now and what they expect to have. And if you transpose that into shipping, I believe by the middle of the century, the whole global trade will look very different. I mean, it's back to a time when the Chinese and Indians were contributing 40 to 50% of the GDP of the world, say 400, 500 years ago, before colonialism conquered Asia. So if you go back to that period and you say, these are people with those capabilities and the numbers and the base, then you're going to have a very different shipping world and a different economic balance between the various regions of the world. And, I don't know what. Let's put it very frankly. I mean, I do not see China not wanting Shanghai to be the biggest shipping center in the world and the biggest financial center in the world, the biggest aviation center in the world, and everything else, because they have watched us, they have watched Hong Kong, they have watched Taiwan. We are three peripheral states of Chinese stock. From the periphery, they are right in the center of that human talent pool. They have the scholars, the poets, the artists. It's a matter of time before they pick up all these techniques, learn all the skills, and they're going to be a very major player. So I think we just, I do not know how you're going to place yourself, but I know Singapore is going to place itself to ride on China's growth and ride on India's growth. We are at the junction of the two great countries that have influenced this region. If you look at the history of the region, you will find that the Indians came first into the region. And so you have the Ramayana and the Hinayana classics all the way through Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, down to Indonesia. And you see the same classical dances and so on. And on the eastern side, the Chinese influence came down to Vietnam and to all the seaports in Southeast Asia. So you find all these sunken wrecks, the Chinese porcelain now being dug up outside the seaports of Asia. Then Vasco da Gama and all the other Western navigators came, and with superior technology, they blanketed this region. Now these countries have come alive, and I think the same two forces will be at work. Maybe in a slightly different form, because populations have changed, but basic talent pools have not changed. And therefore, I believe our future depends on being able to ride both these two huge jet streams that will pull us up.
I think there's one over there first. Then you want to start first? Go ahead. Go ahead. Since you have the mic.
Afternoon, MM. I'm Yap Wei Yim from MPA. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak, and privileged to do so. But I would like to take this opportunity to tap on your many years of international experience in international politics. My question being that, tapping on what you just mentioned about fast forwarding 20 to 30 years time, but perhaps not so much. Let's say we fast forward 15 years time. What do you think will the international political setting will be like? And what are the challenges that this political setting will pose for the maritime community? Thank you.
10, 15 years, I still see a dominant America and dominant Europe, because they are still the major players. They've got the technology, they've got the capital, they've got the institutions, they've got the networks. So I believe whilst the Chinese and the Indians will emerge and gradually become more active in the international field, whether the IMO or whatever international organizations, the American, European entrenched interests will still be considerable. It's not easily displaced. They've got the knowledge and they've got the networks that can keep them up at the top. So I do not believe there will be any drastic change from what we now have, except that you will find more and more room being made for Chinese and Indians in international organizations, whether it is the IMF, World Bank, or whatever international, IMO, or whatever. It's a slow process, and I hope it will not be a disruptive one, because between the end of Pax Britannica and the assumption of Pax Americana, there was no great disruption, because it was between two similar civilizations. So the British decided that they will play the Greeks, the Roman Empire, and they welcomed the Americans as rescuers of Europe, and they wanted to put their experience at the disposal of the Americans. I am not so sanguine about when you have this tilt in the balance of capabilities and power between America and China and India. America and Japan already led to one catastrophic encounter in World War II, and that was an unequal encounter between a very huge continental power and a small island power. This is this is a very different match. I mean, it's one continental power with 300, 400 at the most million people against another continental power with 1,400 million people. And it will be, I think, ruinous for both. Therefore, I believe the Chinese are quite serious when they say peaceful rise, because any other rise will see the emergence aborted. They know that they're still vulnerable, and if they give unnecessary provocations, they may well be set back. So I believe that they are quite sincere when they say, we'll play by the rules, by your rules which you have set, whether it's WTO or IMF or whatever, UN Security Council, etc. We'll trade. We are not seeking hegemony over any part of the world. We are not trying to drive you out of Asia. And if that continues, I think we might have a gradual adaptation as both sides adjust themselves to a different world. I think if you look at what has happened, I saw the Japanese and the Koreans in the 1950s and 60s. And they were not English speaking then, the elite. They were more nationalistic. But over the years, the generations have changed, and you now have Koreans in the cabinet. I think half of the cabinet ministers are American PhDs. A similar transformation may be happening with the Chinese. Today, the leaders, like if you take Wen Xiaopao, Hu Jintao, their first foreign language is Russian. You fast forward 20 years, I think you're going to have a generation whose first foreign language is American, English, and the chances are they've got an MBA or a PhD, and completely at home discussing any subject with any American leader or European leader. So it may be a gradual process of finding a comfortable balance to live in a world which is increasingly small, interconnected, and therefore you need to have accommodation. Any other scenario means a very unhappy world.
I saw a hand over there. Yes, please. C.H. Tong.
Minister Mentor. C.H. Tong, Capital Offshore and Marine. I must say that we must be really privileged and honored for you to be the first speaker of our inaugural Singapore Maritime Lecture. The question that I have for you is that most businesses go up and down over time. our business in the ship repair, ship building, offshore, did, of course, suffer the same fate in the 80s, certain part of 90s. It was reported pretty widely then that you had actually mentioned that it was a sunset industry. By your mere mention, it has unfortunately discouraged a lot of parents, especially those in Singapore, of allowing their children to take up this study. Today, we are still faced with, many of the children not wanting to be in this. Now that you have mentioned and reiterated your support and your belief of this basic industry, would you not then say that it is no longer a sunset industry, but maybe it's on the sunrise? Thank you.
I do not believe that what I said had such a dramatic effect.
I think you underestimate yourself.
I think parents do their own calculations. You take the ship repairing industry, it's not sunset. We are the biggest bunkering hub between the Arabian Gulf and Japan, and a convenient place for ships to degasify and do the repairs here. So it will be a continuing business. But you will find, if I look at the figures every quarter on the work permit holders we have in the various industries, and in the maritime ship repair business, the highest percentage of foreign workers, because you're out in the open, in the sun or in the rain. And yes, parents don't mind their children becoming naval architects or engineers, but they don't want them to be skilled craftsmen in the ship repairing business. Even in the construction industry, no Singaporean who works outdoors now. They wait until the structure is up, then they come in and do the fitments inside the building undercover. And hence you can see Thais, Indians, Bangladeshis, whatever, carrying the piles of cement and churning them up and climbing up the scaffolding and putting up the superstructure. Then when everything is ready, they'll come in and they fit out the plugs and the air conditioning and so on. If you say, here's an industry which will offer you air-conditioned premises, protection from sun and rain, they might believe you, but I mean, if I say it's a rising industry, I think we can rise because I believe what I did not see was the ability of our companies to co-opt others to do the job. Okay? It's not just doing it in Singapore. We got the skills, we got the know-how. We then adopt other people's labor and dockyards and so on and do it there. That's a different kind of future. The British did that. I saw them doing that, and we can do that now. And we have opportunities in India, in China, in the Gulf. I mean, I never believed for one moment that we would be in Russia, but we are. The Russians came here 2, 3 years ago because I'd been to Russia and had met a few ministers there, and they read my memoirs, Third World to First, translated to Russian. And they were enamored with our airport. So now Changi International is in Saremetyevo Airport, running it and converting it and upgrading it. But Russian labor, Russian support, and we are giving the intellectual input and the methodology. Well, I think that way we can grow. And the ship repairing, rig building, and other maritime activities can grow in that way, at the top end. But the actual skilled work on the job will have to be done with people we co-opt, which you are doing. I don't know how you... Are you doing something in the Caspian Sea in Kazakhstan? Yes. What workers are you using? Yeah, but what workers are you using? Kazakh? Azaris and Kazakhs. Well, there you